Hey there viewers, welcome back to yet another informative and fun video on all things that are good for you, and this is the Holistic Collective. We hope you have as much fun in watching our videos the way we have super fun in making them for you. Before we start, please take a moment and click on the subscribe button and make sure you subscribe to our channel. Also, do remember to check out our affiliate products in the description below. Now that you are done subscribing to the Holistic Collective, we promise you will love every bit of our videos, so let's get right into them. Today we will be speaking about metabolism. A lot of people often wonder on how they could fix metabolic damage or a slow metabolism which comes from extreme dieting. Now, an effective metabolic rate is a very common factor because most of us are aiming at weight loss. When we go on certain diets, it is not easy to stick to them in the long run, and more often than not, we give up on the diets, and as a result, all the lost weight comes back. This is also known as weight cycling. So the question here is, why is weight regained after it's lost? There also are some cases where people regain even more weight than what they had lost in the first place. I know there are many of you who may have faced this issue. Believe me, even I have too. So here's the answer. This kind of weight regain is referred to as metabolic adaptation or metabolic damage. It is basically how the body responds to weight loss. There are certain things you can do to fix this or rather restore your metabolism. But like we always recommend, do check with your doctor or dietitian before you do anything new. Now for starters, let us understand what metabolic damage actually is. We would like to refer to it as metabolic adaptation. It is the body's response to long-term caloric restriction or starvation. It is the side effect of calorie restriction or extreme dieting. But practically speaking, for your body, going on this mode is normal because it also is the body's natural survival mechanism. It is very simple. If your body does not get enough energy or calories available, it slows down the metabolism, which is just enough to burn those few calories in the day. Your body is simply making an attempt to preserve energy, which it can use for regular day-to-day functions. These functions don't only mean physical activity, but also includes basics like breathing, digestion, walking, standing, etc. Now, there are many metabolic mechanisms that influence your body weight. The ability of a person to lose a significant amount of weight for good and keep it off for good is debatable. So let us first understand things from a metabolic calculation perspective and then try to figure what actually would be required to change your body weight. If we were to consider that energy in is equal to the energy out, then by that logic, the energy in appears as the actual number of calories consumed minus the calories that are not actually absorbed from the food. This again is subject to whether or not the information we get on food contains how many calories is the accurate number or not. The accuracy depends on where you get the nutrition facts from. Let's say that since most of us consume a lot of packaged and store-bought food and we go by their nutritional charts, it really would be difficult to know our exact calorie consumption. The FDA does say that this information can be up to 20% off, but can still be taken into consideration. So you need to remember that the calorie count we get from our sources may not be 100% accurate. Now coming back to calorie absorption. The number of calories in food may not equal the number of calories you actually absorb. This rate of absorption of your food again depends on several factors like whether the food you're eating is cooked or processed, packaged, the fiber content of the food, the microbiome makeup, etc. Now that was about energy in. The other factor, which is energy out, that is generally a combination of resting metabolic rate plus the thermic effect of food, which is basically defined as the increase in metabolic rate after ingestion of a meal, plus your physical activity and non-exercise activity, which is also known as thermogenesis. Now let's understand another factor, which is RMR, meaning resting metabolic rate. This is nothing but the number of calories that you burn each day when you are at rest. Yes, even basic non-effort based body functions like breathing, blood circulation, organ function and brain function are supported by RMR. This differs from person to person based on genetics, age, sex, weight, and there is a speculation that even gut microflora could be a deciding factor. Need to keep that gut health intact. Apparently, our RMR represents about 60% of our energy output, meaning our metabolism. Along with RMR, there is TEF that we spoke about earlier, the thermic effect of food. So different foods digest and absorb differently, impacting your metabolism differently. So energy expenditure varies as per the type of food or as per the macronutrient. For example, carbohydrates and fat require 5 to 15% of your energy output to digest, while protein requires 20 to 35%. After that, the bigger energy expenditure happens when you do any physical activity. Working out and regular physical activity is one thing, but did you know a fun fact? That something as small as twirling your hair, fidgeting with things, etc., even this utilizes your energy output and can be almost as much as 10 to 15%. Yeah, who knew, right? I am consciously going to keep twirling my hair all day long. Now let's talk about how exactly metabolic adaptation happens when our body goes through weight changes. Whatever we know about metabolic adaptation, all the research basically is mostly based on theories. Some such known theories are the set point theory and the dual intervention point theory. Let us try and understand these theories so that it makes understanding our body's metabolic adaptation even simpler. First up is the set point theory, which suggests that our bodies have a comfortable weight which is genetically predetermined, and your body will always try to maintain that set weight, whether you eat more or less during your dieting phase. So basically, your body tries to compensate for all the dietary changes as though it has its own coping mechanism that reduces the energy output and increases the energy input. The body does this as an effort to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically any self-regulating process by which an organism tends to maintain stability while adjusting to conditions that are best for its survival. It could be body weight or body temperature, etc. Now coming to the second theory, which is the dual intervention point theory. This theory suggests that genetically we have a set point, but that it's not a static number. It is mostly a range which is outside of the upper and lower intervention points or set. So the body's mechanism brings us back to the desired weight range. But this control mechanism can also get weaker if your body falls within this set point range. A simple example to understand this would be, let's assume your set point range is between 110 to 135 pounds, then your body's mechanism for weight are weaker within this range. Now this range can go higher or lower depending on your weight fluctuation due to diet or exercise. But if your body weight goes outside this set range, then the whole mechanism is opposed. Meaning, let's assume now you want to reduce your weight to 100 pounds or up to 160 pounds. Then it gets difficult for your body's physiological mechanism to cope and still maintain the ideal weight it normally would. Now, while it is a fact that everyone's bodies are different, and which is why their set point range will also vary, this also explains why some people seem like they can eat anything and nothing happens to their weight. I'm sure we all know that one person, right? Now, someone like this has a very narrow set point range, which is why their body works harder to keep them within that range. And then there are people like me, who eat anything out of the way or even have a beer for that matter and gain weight. How I envy those narrow set point range people, I tell you. So for all you peeps out there like me who gain weight very quickly, we are the not so lucky ones because our weight set point range is wider. So we just have to work harder to maintain our ideal weight. Apart from changes in metabolic rate, even your hormones tend to adjust to compensate for changes in body weight. For example, when you lose weight, some major things can happen. The first theory we spoke about earlier, the set point theory, it suggests that leptin, which is the satiety hormone, is the main hormone that compensates for a decreased caloric intake. Leptin is stored in fat cells and is known as a satiety hormone because it gives us a signal when we are feeling full after eating. So naturally, when we lose weight, our fat cells shrink and leptin levels drop. So getting these signals of feeling full doesn't happen. And that's the reason we feel the need to eat more to feel full, because our body now wants to fight to regain the ideal weight. There's also a hunger hormone which is called ghrelin. It's inversely related to caloric intake, meaning whenever we eat fewer calories than what our body needs, ghrelin steps up and increases our appetite. There are many studies which show that people who try to lose weight and keep it off have ended up producing more ghrelin than they did before losing weight. And next up is the most dreaded hormone. Any guesses? Yep, the one and only cortisol, the stress hormone. Just mentioning it stresses me. Did you know, apart from stressful conditions, cortisol is often released under severe caloric restriction or excessive exercise? This back again connects to what we at the Holistic Collective keep reminding you. Everything has to be done in moderation. Excess of nothing is good, and try to stay stress-free, else the evil cortisol is always waiting for a chance to pounce on you. An increased level of cortisol can slow down your metabolism, which means it will be more difficult for you to lose weight. Now that's the last thing you want, right? Imagine all that diet and workouts and you're stressed, cortisol increases, and boom, weight can't be lost. And it isn't just we who say this. Some studies even have shown that women who consume low-calorie diets have higher cortisol levels and their stress levels are higher compared to women who do not restrict their diet that much. Then there is also insulin levels, which we have spoken about in detail in another of our videos. You may want to check out that video. We have a link to it in the description below at the end of this video. Now coming back to the big bad cortisol. Whenever this increases, there is also an increase in our insulin resistance. In such a situation, our cells become less sensitive to insulin shooting up the blood sugar levels. And when all of this happens, it only means the risk factor for type 2 diabetes increases. So when your body is dealing with all these issues, it tends to go into a defense mechanism or a compensatory mechanism to help itself survive against severe weight loss, caloric restriction, fat dieting, etc. The body continues to try and maintain its natural set point weight or weight range. When the body has a metabolic adaptation happening, there is also a flip side. You experience things like fatigue, heartburn, digestive stress, increased hunger, sleep disturbances, weight gain, anxiety, loss of muscle, low immunity. Women can have their irregular periods and whatnot. Now the question here is, what can be done and how do you fix the damaged metabolism? How do you get back to a normal homeostasis after you're done with your diet and the restriction phase? Well, do not worry, we got you. There are two ways. One is reverse dieting. Now that's new. After dieting, now there's reverse dieting too? Well, it's only here to help you fix that metabolism which went haywire. We can also call it the diet after your diet. Reverse dieting is simply a way of eating that you do after your dieting phase. What you need to do is progressively increase your caloric intake over a certain period of time. By doing this, you will boost up your resting metabolic rate back to its original rate. Though there isn't a lot of research on reverse dieting, but it still can be a possibility. The folks in the fitness competition and sports nutrition do this a lot, and some of them swear by it too. So we are guessing it works, but we would also recommend to do this after checking with your nutritionist or dietitian. It is suggested you increase calories by 50 to 100 calories a week. The other thing to help fix a damaged metabolism is the all-in approach. This has been created by Dr. Nicola Rinaldi. It was originally developed to restore hormonal function quickly in order to reverse symptoms of hypothalamic ammonia such as menstrual irregularity, extreme hunger, lack of libido, infertility, and temperature sensitivity, etc. The all-in approach is used a lot these days to restore metabolic function as well. In her book titled No Period, Now What?, Dr. Rinaldi suggests that recovery involves three main pillars. She encourages people to stick to this for a minimum of 6 months to see a complete recovery. The three pillars are: first, following her meal plan daily which is for a minimum of 2500 calories a day with a maximum and allowing yourself to eat to your fill. Second is high intensity exercise, and the third is reducing stress. Now, for people who have just gotten up from a phase of intense restriction where they may have experienced extreme hunger, then they may require a lot of calories to recover. Again, this is your body's way of asking for enough calories to get back to its original form and to help you replenish after months or years of underfueling, if that may have happened due to your dieting or exercising. After a diet, when a low calorie intake, when you jump to additional calories, say of 2000 calories minimum, then it is normal to gain back the weight and fat. But people who have followed the all-in approach have mentioned that initially they did gain extra weight, but later, as their metabolism adjusted, the gained weight kind of went off and resettled back or simply plateaued. But there have been many who have simply plateaued at a higher weight when they reach their true set point. There can be two reasons for this, which are that the initial weight gain may cause changes in fluid and electrolyte storage, causing water retention. And the second reason is bloating. So the higher calorie intake you have in the all-in approach gradually needs to be dropped once your metabolism is repaired or stabilized. Now that we have understood both these theories on how we can fix our damaged metabolism, let us compare and figure the pros and cons of reverse dieting and the all-in approach. While reverse dieting lets you have a gradual metabolic adaptation and reduces the risk of gaining excess fat and weight while preserving lean muscle mass, the flip side is that, just like any other dieting, reverse dieting may not be appropriate for those struggling with eating disorders. This happens because the goal of reverse dieting is to slowly increase your caloric intake without risking weight or fat gain. So there is a chance that a person trying reverse dieting may never actually ever reach their body's true set point weight. The other con is that reverse dieting may not restore your metabolism quickly. So if you are dealing with, let's say, thyroid dysfunction or other hormonal irregularities, you may not achieve the timely recovery of your metabolism. Based on these reasons, the all-in approach seems to be a lot more effective in restoring hormonal regulation, which is connected to restoring metabolism. The all-in approach helps in improving everything from sleep, menstrual cycle, thyroid, hunger, and fullness cues, etc. It can help you reach your body's natural set point sooner after a period of restriction or dieting, as we call it. While reverse dieting can offer some significant health benefits, it may not allow for full healing to occur. Now the question here is, do you know which one to pick? Reverse dieting or the all-in approach? Well, that would totally depend on your goals and health concerns if you have any. So make sure you firstly know what you want in terms of your weight loss and metabolic restoration, and then keeping your health issues in mind, consult with a professional before you pick any of these methods. And last but not the least, no matter what you do, try to avoid stress, get enough sleep, and never forget to smile.